hitting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Having Juice with OJ with your host, Oliver. Today, we are here with a very good friend of mine, Yerimi Jimenez. He's a sports management major at Temple University. Say hello.
How you guys doing? I'm Jeremy. I'm very excited to be on the show. Big shout out to OJ for the podcast, and let's go.
So, we're just going to start off with an update about somebody very special and in everybody's hearts in football right now, and that's Damar Hamlin. And what happened to him on that field, the Bills versus Bengals. It was very sad. It was something that not a lot of people have ever seen in their time, either watching, playing, listening to football. And it really struck a lot of people, even outside of just sports fans. It really touched the hearts of everyone. And we are so glad to announce that he is right now doing amazing. One of the first things he did was he wrote down, "Did we win?" to the doctors, which is something you would not expect someone to say, but that just shows that he was looking out for everyone else and not just himself. And he wanted everybody else to keep doing what they were going to do, and that what happened to him really wasn't a big deal when in reality it was. And this is something that we should all really think about whenever we think about sports and telling people to stop talking and play their sport, because it's bigger than sports. That's a human being out there. That's someone who has a family, who has been around the block, who's just a real human being, and we need to notice that. And also, he had just gotten his tube out of his throat, which means he can now breathe on his own, which is the biggest sign that we are waiting for on him. And one thing that I want to start off talking about is the mental health aspect that this will have on players. Not only Bills and Bengals players, but players across the globe, not even in the NFL. Because this hit was not serious, Jeremy. This hit was a normal tackle that everyone's seen happen 50, 60 times a game. So how do you think that players should now look at it and look at tackling and going after someone now, like due to this issue?
Yeah, you mentioned it was a routine tackle. It happens 50, 60 times a game. It happens 500 times a week at practice. It's something that you don't avoid. It just happens. But in this instance, I feel like that was a very freak incident, something that doesn't happen naturally. So I think the players approaching that aspect with fear should really take a step back and realize that, those players aren't out there to hurt you. Your teammates are out there to protect you, to have your back. So as long as everybody puts their best foot forward and puts their heart into the game and plays the game the way it should be, those freak incidents should be kept at a minimum.
I definitely agree. I think that it's something that we might not see ever again, and we all pray and hope that it never happens again. So that's that on that injury. And to move forward, we're just going to talk about the playoff picture. So, who's the team to beat?
All season long, being that we're in Philadelphia, the Eagles have been the talk of football. They started off 10, 11-0, 11-1. They started taking some losses. Some questions started coming out. Some players started getting hurt. Is this really the team to beat? Are they the best in football? In my opinion, I've been saying this all season to anyone who would listen. It's not the Eagles, it's not the Vikings, but it's really the Titans of the NFC. The Bengals, the Bills, and in my opinion, the team to beat, the Chiefs.
I would have to say that I really think that it's the Bengals that are the team to beat, and that's only because, one, we saw what they did last year, and even just a year, they're still a younger team, have less experience, are going through changes, and now this year, you look at them and they barely had Jamar Chase. They were going through the rough. Like their defense was holding up. Their offense was steamrolling people. You had T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Hurst. All of them were out there giving their best effort. And T. Higgins, I would say, on any other team, is the number one receiver. I would say in 25, maybe even 26 teams, that dude is a wide receiver 1. And the fact that he has to take a step back even after those crazy games, because he knows who that dog is. That dog is Jamar. And when it gets to playoff time, he's who you're leaning on. And Joe Burr is who you're leaning on. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree, but look at the Chiefs. Everybody thought the Chiefs were done. Tyreek Hill was traded to the Dolphins. The Chiefs are done. They're garbage. They're over. It's 33, 34-year-old Kelsey. It's Mahomes and all these scrubs, MVS, Kadarius Toney, who they ended up getting later on in the season, who nobody believed in. And he still ended up producing very well for his role. The Chiefs have only gotten better. Their defense has only gotten better. They've allowed, I'm pretty sure, way less points this year than last year. Their offense has taken steps up beyond imagination. Travis Kelce has been their number one option throughout all these years, not Tyreek Hill. The role that Tyreek Hill plays on the field is filled by other guys like MVS and McCole Hardman and Kadarius Toney. And Patrick Mahomes, being the gifted quarterback that he is able to get the ball into those receivers' hands and still is able to win those games. The Chiefs this year are doing way better than they did last year, and they're in a position to go even farther than they did last year.
So you would have to say that the Chiefs did not slow down. If anything, they picked up due to Tyreek's absence, because maybe they were able to figure out how to spread the ball more.
Well, I would say teams probably went into games with the Chiefs thinking that they had a game plan around Travis Kelce more, and they stopped thinking about Juju Smith-Schuster and MVS and McCole Hardman. And then the Chiefs went and brought out their running game. You know,
Pacheco.
Rookie Isaiah Pacheco out of Rutgers, Jerick McKinnon, young stud. They pushed Clyde Edwards-Helaire to the bench. And at the beginning of the season, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was playing very well too. And we didn't think that was a possibility for him. But then these two guys, they rose to the occasion. There was times where on the backs of those two running backs, they've won games. And teams are rarely able to beat Mahomes when he's throwing. And now he has the option of relying on his two running backs with his improved defense, with his improved offensive line. I don't know. I think it's it's going to be very dangerous coming into the playoffs.
So, I would have to agree with you there, but I would have to also counter with the Bills Mafia right now. Because as much as I'm talking the Bengals, the Bills have just as much push for them to actually get through a playoff. Last year, that was heartbreaking for them. They really, really could have had it. They have a great team. Everyone is willing to do their job and be a part of like a whole. Their defense is unstoppable in my opinion. I think that it's way better than the Chiefs' defense. I would have to say that Josh Allen is doing things unimaginable just as well as Patrick Mahomes. I would have to say their running has actually been pretty solid, which I thought was one of their weak points. But I think that they've managed to get a game going, and I think that they've really kept that pass game going, which has really pushed them and excelled their team this year. So I could see the Bills pushing them out and really being that team that can go out there and fight for the Super Bowl.
I 100% agree with you, but my question surrounding the Bills is, do they believe in themselves to really get it done this time? I think this is the third year in a row where we're talking about the Bills being the perennial Super Bowl contenders. They should be the ones. They're on paper going into week one, they're in the Super Bowl game. Now we're just figuring out who they're going to be playing. And in the past seasons, we haven't even seen them make it. So it's not a question of skill, because their defense, as you said, honestly, I agree, it's the number one stout defense. When they're all healthy, they're all together, they're not putting up anything on that defense. They're passing between Allen and Diggs, that 1-2 punch, that's one of the most dangerous combos in the league. I wouldn't want to play against that any day. You know, even with Devin Singletary in the backfield, even with Josh Adams running ability, that's a pretty dangerous run game. But I just think it's mental. I think there's something in that team, whether it's the coaching, the players, I have no idea. I think there's something that has held that team back from getting over the hump.
Another matchup I want to talk about for the wild card would be the Jags and the Chargers. How do you feel about those two teams?
Those are two teams that I honestly would say are young, just as the three Titans up top, but I feel like they're lacking. They're lacking in a big part of their game, whether it's, for me, it's the Jags' offensive consistency, and for the Chargers, it's their defense, and especially their run defense. And I think that, you know, getting into the playoffs this year, potentially playing against each other again, and which they played, I think it was week 3, the Jags steamrolled the Chargers. I think it was 38-10. You know, I think if they have that matchup again, the Chargers come back into it with a better game plan. They keep it much closer. They address those problems that they've been having all season long. And then in that one game, they have a really good battle of young teams to see who's really going to come out on top and get that good experience to go play one of the better teams and come back next year and get that taste of what it's like to be a top team in the NFL.
Yeah, I definitely agree about that Chargers defense. I mean, they have not looked good really all year. They let up so many points day in and day out, and I think that ETN is going to take it to him. I think that run defense is not going to hold up. I think he's going to get his yards. He's going to get his tutty, and I just cannot, as much as I look at the Jags, and especially if you looked at it in the beginning of the year, I'd be laughing if you said I'd be talking about them beating the Chargers. I think they can. I think Justin Herbert needs to bring his game. I think he needs to throw 48 times. I think Austin Eckler needs to touch the ball at least
20.
At least
20 times.
At least. So that means if you go by those numbers, that they have to have possession of the ball most of the time. And when you look at it, will they? You've got Dougie P on the other side who goes for any fourth down. If he converts more than half of his first downs, they're going to have the ball most of the time on that field. And I think that's going to be the issue, is if they can keep that offense off the field and not get them all those touches and all those throws, that's what's going to be their Achilles heel.
It's going to be a big factor. However, that's contingent if the Jags make the playoffs.
Yes.
Because the Jags still have to beat the Tennessee Titans this weekend. So we don't even know if the Jags are going to be the AFC South Division winners. It could potentially be Derrick Henry and the Titans, which honestly for the Chargers, I honestly would want that matchup a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's Derrick Henry who's going to try to run the ball down your throat for 200 yards, and he'll probably get 120 of them.
Nobody else is doing anything.
But nobody else is touching the ball. You're not trusting Ryan Tannehill or Malik Willis. You're honestly, you're betting them to throw on you guys. And with guys like Asante Samuel on the Chargers, you know, I think he can lock up guys like Treylon Burks or Robert Woods pretty well. So in that aspect, I think the Chargers are kind of leaning towards maybe a Titans win so that they can play the Titans. And that's especially if the Ravens lose to the Bengals in the 1 o'clock slate. Because if that happens, the Ravens can no longer get the top wildcard spot. So that would be for the Jags. So, I mean, for the Chargers. So we'll have to see what happens with that game.
And moving on, let's talk some Eagles, because we brought it up a little bit earlier. But I think everyone came into the playoffs a couple weeks ago saying they are that team. They're those dogs. Everyone's looking amazing. They're on top of the world. Everyone's healthy. Everything's going great. But now Jalen, his shoulder. What do we do about that? How do we go further? Thinking about, should he play this last week? Should he get that number 1 seed? Or should they wait and push him to the playoffs, in which he maybe comes back healthier and can really make a deep Super Bowl run?
Yeah, no, we were kind of talking about this a little earlier, and then I had to think to myself. At first, I was more on the side of, you know, rest Jalen, let Gardner play the last game of the season against the Giants, who have been kind of hot, kind of not. They locked up their playoff spot, so I mean they can't move up in the playoff rankings. So they don't really have too much to play for. They can only really just play spoiler to the Eagles. However, if the Eagles were to rest Jalen, win, get the 1 seed, now Jalen gets an extra week of rest because now the Eagles will lock up a bye week. So we wouldn't see Jalen Hurts for another 2 or 3 weeks, in which that time we'll be resting. Now, if I'm Nick Sirianni, and I see that my defense has been pretty banged up lately. My running backs, Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, they're not putting in as much work as they've been doing all season, and that's obviously attributed to Jalen Hurts' rushing ability. I'm a little bit more hesitant about resting Jalen Hurts because I know how important it is to this team that Jalen Hurts is under center for every single snap for the playoffs. So it's like, do I risk that or do I not risk that? And I think Sirianni will make the right call. He's been doing that all season. But it's also another point of teams have been able to figure out the Eagles over the course of the season. We saw that Monday night game. Going into that game, we saw that teams weren't running the ball on the Eagles at all. The Washington Commanders did nothing but run the ball and saw success with that. And we saw teams start doing that more and more.
Yeah.
And as teams did that, the Eagles started to lose a little bit, and that's where these questions arose. So while those questions are legitimate, I don't think they're big enough to where it would falter Sirianni's game plan going into the postseason. I think he knows what he wants to do with this squad, and whether that involves playing Hurts this week or not, I think that game plan is very strong, and the Eagles are going to have a deep run this year.
I definitely see the issue with sitting him out because that can cause you to build up rust. And rust is not good for the playoffs. You need to go in with momentum. You need to go in all guns a-blazing. And if they decide to sit him, that could cause a lot of issues because it could then make their team a little more sluggish. It can make Jalen a little bit more sluggish on his first game back. So I think that that's a factor into it all. As long as they can keep him healthy on that field the last game, I would enjoy to see him out there playing against a division rival. So to keep pushing, what do the Niners have to do right in order to make a run?
They have to remain as the top defense in the league. We mentioned earlier as the Chiefs and the Bills were some pretty strong defenses, but I don't think they light a candle to what San Francisco could do when they're 100% healthy. This is a team that, up until this past week, didn't allow any fourth quarter points in their last 6, 7, 8 games. They're on a 9-game win streak. They've transitioned from Jimmy G to Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, has come in and done the thing. He's been getting win after win, gaining that confidence, gaining the trust of his teammates. And when you're a rookie QB who can throw to a rising star in Brandon Ayuk on one side, George Kittle, a top tight end in the league on another side, Deebo Samuel, one of the best gadget men in the league when he's healthy, and in your backfield you got CMC, just a monster. You know, that does a lot for him. And when you have that stout defense that does what they're able to do, make plays and not hurt teams, but they're able to hurt teams and put them in positions where they're uncomfortable and where the 49ers can take advantage and score, that's going to be very key to their playoff run if that defense can do what they've been doing all season.
I definitely agree, and I think Mr. Irrelevant has really done a good job with it. I think that a lot of people have agreed that you could put anybody under center for the Niners and they'll go out there and they'll ball. And I think that just shows the coaching ability, but it also shows, just like you said, that defense. Because if you're able to put a QB out there, just like somebody like Brock Purdy, for example, he's very good. I love Brock Purdy. But you're able to throw him out there in the midst of a season where you guys are trying to make a deep run. he's not asked to do too much. He's not asked to do the most. He doesn't have to run out the pocket and scramble and make plays for himself because he has playmakers surrounding him. And if you have those dogs around you, like you have that really good tight end, George Kittle, you have somebody like that who is an automatic catch every single time you pass it to him. You got Ayuk on the side who's just a demon. He goes out there and he'll find that ball no matter what. Then just like you said, CMC. That guy can run. If Brock starts looking a little bit bad, they just give it to CMC. Throw it to him no matter what. He'll make the play.
Who we've seen also has the ability to catch the ball like a receiver. And I believe the third week he was with the Niners, threw for a touchdown. So that offense is amazing. Kyle Shanahan has all the tools he needs out there. The 49ers have been a problem in the playoffs for many teams. And this year they're going to continue to not just be a problem, but a legitimate threat in the NFC.
Do you think it will depend on who they play that first game, if they win or not?
Well, in my mind, I believe they already have that number 2 seed locked up. They play, I believe, the Cardinals this weekend, and the Vikings play the Bears. So even if the Vikings win, I don't see the 49ers losing. So the 49ers lock that up. They'll get the 7th seed, which in my mind will probably be the Green Bay Packers. And if you know anything about the Packers and the 49ers and their playoff history, you know the Packers haven't beaten the Niners in the 5 times that they played in the past 14 years. So that looks very well on San Francisco's end. And then going into maybe another game with Dallas, maybe a game against the Giants or the Vikings, those aren't teams that threaten the 49ers at all.
So to talk about the Vikings a little bit, as you brought them up, Kirk Cousins, prime time, playoffs. How do we feel about this guy going out there?
I think prime time and Kirk Cousins should never be associated with one another ever. I mean, yeah, it's the Vikings have had a roller coaster of a season. Their defense started out as one of the best in the league, and it's fallen off tremendously. Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in the NFL. Time and time again, he goes out there and proves that. But Kirk Cousins' decision-making, his throwing, it's very hard to get behind Kirk Cousins, either as a Vikings fan or an NFC fan or just a football fan in general. It's hard to watch him make the decisions that he makes during games and big-time decisions, and it's hard to really support that.
I would definitely say one of his issues is when the pocket collapses. So the one thing with Kirk is that he does not know how to move. And when he does try to move, he thinks he can move too fast. And then he gets tripped up. And if you have a pocket passing QB that if you give him an amazing line, for example, if you give him a great line, he looks amazing. And he's going to do his thing. He's going to be able to sit there for a couple seconds, drop back, and find one of his targets. But that's not what's happening. Brian O'Neill's down. That's a huge loss for them. Like their offense is shaky. Their offensive line is shaky. The only thing that has stayed true is Justin Jefferson. And right now, TJ Hawkinson too, I would have to say. Adam Thielen has been a ghost, and I don't know if that's because of the offense that they are running, because I did see Adam Thielen on the sideline a couple games ago screaming at his coach, I'm the wide receiver too. Why aren't I getting the ball when Jay Jettas got smacked around for a sec? I should get it. And then Thielen scored a touchdown that drive. So I don't know if it's because they kind of threw him out the game plan, but he's been non-existent all year long.
There's been chat about Thielen, getting on the older side, but he's still one of those guys that you can lean on going down the stretch. He's like the Julian Edelmans, the Russell, like all those guys that Tom Brady used to rely on. That's the type of guy that Adam Thielen has formed himself into, and I think that regardless of whether it's Kirk Cousins or not, I think having a quarterback on that team that can do what needs to be done behind that offensive line, whether they give him 2 or 4 seconds to throw the ball, having those weapons, especially when the Vikings went out and got a guy like TJ Hawkinson who can do so many versatile things. Having that quarterback that can be behind that line, that can make those plays, make those throws, and make those good decisions is what is going to get the Vikings over the hump. Because we also don't forget you got Dalvin Cook in the back, so a lot of the times Kirk can almost draw back to Dalvin, and a lot of times that doesn't even work because at times it feels like they're not even on the same page.
Yeah.
So I agree. The offensive line has a lot of strifes. The play calling is not always what it should be, but I think it does start with Kirk, and if he can address those problems come playoff time, then the Vikings will see success. But I really don't see, after how many tries of Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, I really don't see them getting it done.
And then let's bounce to the GOAT. We've got Tom Brady coming in here. He's going to be versing the Dallas Cowboys. Do we think he still has it?
Tom Brady just had his best game of the season this past weekend against the Panthers, who previously put a hurting on the Bucks. Tom Brady, at the end of the day, we can think whatever we want. We can say whatever we want. We can bring up whatever numbers we want. Tom Brady is going to do Tom Brady things. He has earned the status of GOAT time and time again. And until he himself says he is done, I don't think there's anybody in the world that can count him out. And as soon as I find myself on the edge of Tom Brady's career, I see myself looking past him, saying he's washed, he's done. The Bucks have had a terrible season. They're 8-8. They still managed to win the division, but their offense was terrible. Their defense has fallen off. It seems like everything with Brady and his personal life that was going on in the beginning of the season was having a toll on the team. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin weren't playing the way they were playing, but Mike Evans comes out and again has another 1,000-yard receiving season. Chris Godwin comes back after being injured for the beginning portion of the season and reminds the league that he's still a top dog as well. Leonard Fournette and Rachaad White, while they have had their issues throughout the season, they have learned and grown as a backfield, as a duo, and they've been able to pull up for Brady when he needs it most. So I think that team is as dangerous as ever. It's Tom Brady. You don't count him out. You don't want to play him in the playoffs. So we'll just have to see what happens with them.
Yeah, I definitely think that their defense is lacking a little bit compared to how it used to be. But I think, just like you said, he's earned that title of GOAT. No matter what, you do not count that dude out. Doesn't matter how old he is. And he's going to go out there in playoff time, especially playoff Brady's a different breed. And that guy's going to go against that Cowboy defense, and I think he's going to make it Swiss cheese. I think he's going to go out there. I think he's going to absolutely dominate. I could see him starting off slow that game. I could see him starting off slow. The Cowboys go down, they score maybe a run to Pollard. They get it to the 1-yard line, and Zeke bangs it in. And I think that's just enough to get him mad, for him to go out there and just start blowing it up. And then as soon as he starts blowing it up, Dak's gonna throw the interceptions. He's gonna fumble it. He's gonna make a bad read. So that's how I think that game will go. But we'll see. So we're going to take a little break. See you later. Welcome back to Having Juice with OJ. We're here with Jeremy, and we're going to continue our football talk for a sec. So, Jeremy, we have one last wild card spot that we haven't really talked about. Who do you think is going to fill that role?
So right now, there are 3 teams. After last week, the Washington Commanders were eliminated after their loss to the Cleveland Browns. We have the Seattle Seahawks, the Detroit Lions, and the Green Bay Packers. So throughout the entirety of the season, the Seattle Seahawks were actually probably the favorite team out of this bunch to be in the playoffs and to make the playoffs. They were at a point 6-3, 7-3, leading the NFC West, and it kind of all just collapsed for them. They fell into the 7th spot. They're 8-8, and this last game comes down to them versus the Rams. But their destiny is not in their hand. The only team in this instance that controls their own destiny is the Green Bay Packers.
Okay.
And after getting their game against the Detroit Lions flexed into Sunday night, because obviously of the high stakes, I think that they're gonna come out and they're gonna get that dub. They are 8-8. They are on a 4-game win streak. They have beaten some pretty good teams recently, including the Dolphins, including the Vikings. And I think that this is a legacy revenge game for Aaron Rodgers. The Green Bay Packers took a loss to the Lions earlier this season. It was kind of embarrassing for the Packers, but I think they go and they get it done, regardless of if the Seahawks win, because if they win, they play spoiler to the Lions, who will be eliminated. So the only thing that the Lions can try to do is play spoiler to the Packers by beating them, and that would be the only way that Seattle gets in. If Seattle loses and the Lions win, the Lions are in. But no matter what, if the Packers win, the Packers are in. So I think that's the easiest, most clear-cut way for Aaron Rodgers and his guys, his young receivers of Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, who have torched up the second half of the season. He's playing back in form. Their defense is coming back alive. Jair Alexander is proving his doubters wrong again. Their rookies, Devondre Campbell, and everybody else, a part of that defense, is going crazy. David Bakhtiari is going to come back, and he's going to be a problem for everybody on the left side. So I think the Packers get it done.
I definitely agree with you. I think that the Seahawks have slowed down in terms of their production and in terms of even me just believing in their team in general. And as much as I would love a little Cinderella story with the Lions, because I mean they have a really good team. They have a very high-powered offense, which is starting to really come to fruition. I think Goff has really shown himself and shown that he can be that guy still, and you just need to believe in him and put some pieces around him. I think that defense, it is what it is, but I think that if you have that offense and you have those young guys, like you can do something with it. But I also will never doubt that dual backfield that Green Bay has, and I'll never doubt that magician as a QB. And that defense is looking solid. That defense is coming together. So I definitely agree with you there.
And I will say, the Lions are a very well-coached team. Dan Campbell, what he has done to go in there and get those guys, every single one of those Lions players has bought into what Dan Campbell is trying to do. And it's paid dividends for that organization. And I'm really happy for the Lions and Lions fans, but I just don't think that they're in it yet, especially if it's over a division rival like the Packers, who have had everything over them for the past 10, 15, 20 years.
So right there's the last of the playoff picture that we were to talk about. So let's move on to some NBA predictions that we have and how we feel about how the league's moving right now. And as you know, we've seen a lot of scoring this year. This year has been very different than some other years that we've seen. We see Donovan Mitchell putting up 71. We see Luka putting up 60 and 21 and 10. We see all these big names. We see a lot of people, averaging way higher numbers than the years before. Like, what can we say about the league And what can we say that it's moving in a better direction or worse direction?
You know, if the season were to end today, there's 6 or 7 guys right now who are averaging over 30 points a game. You know, that's, as someone who started watching basketball around like 2009, 2010, when it was still like a lot of emphasis on defense, not as much three-point scoring, not as many guys on one team going for 20, 30 points in a game. You know, it's really odd to see the emphasis on scoring and less emphasis on defense. But at the same time, it kind of makes for fun basketball. I like seeing when teams are playing at a very fast pace and not in a sense chucking up shots, but they're throwing up shots at a high rate. You know, they're rebounding the ball with a great hustle. You know, they're throwing their body in front of driving defenders and stuff like that. And I think that the way that the league is going, it's only going to continue to put more emphasis on scoring, which is either going to in turn ruin defense even more, or it's going to force defenses to pick up because teams are going to fall behind so bad.
So even in the years past, we've noticed the emphasis of the league on making sure that the offensive player cannot get injured. And I think that this is a product of that. What we're seeing is that coaches, and even before they get to the NBA, coaches in general are pushing for these high-powered offenses because they know that they can get to the line, that they can jump into a shot and get hit. They can do all these things, and the defense, they have to really lean back and take one step back while the offense is taking 2 steps forward. And I think, and as a sports management major, I want to hear your side of it. Business-wise, bringing in people to watch your sport, come to your stadium. A lot of people do not want to go to a game and watch like a 82 to 95 game. People want to go there and watch their ballers ball. They want to go there and they want to see Luka have those points. They want to see Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown both go for over 25. They want those high-powered offenses. But when it comes to the sport itself, the basketball as a whole, how do we feel about this happening?
Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. In a business sense, for sure, I 100% can see how organizations would want their teams to be putting up 140, 150 points a night, because fans want to see points scored. Fans want to, if you're watching a Sixers game, you want to go see Embiid have 59, 16, and 7 blocks and 10 assists and whatever stat line he may have for that game. You don't want to see him go out there and have 15 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 blocks, and the Sixers only score 70 points. So from that standpoint, I understand that a lot. Basketball-wise, I kind of feel like we've seen a transition from a defense-oriented league to an offense-oriented league. You were saying earlier how a lot of teams put emphasis on getting to the line and doing those little nicks and knacks to get those certain calls that will give your team an advantage on offense. And I think that the officiating in the league has kind of taken that turn to where a lot of the times the defense would have the advantage. But I think now, oftentimes, the offense does have a lot of the advantage. And when you have smart, crafty players like James Harden, who can really get to any point of the court and get the call that he wants, or Chris Paul, who is on a podcast and he's talking about 3-for-2s and teaching Jason Tatum what a 3-for-2 is, and just understanding the game on a different level like that is definitely the route that the league has taken. And then with those players like that, just utilizing the game to their advantage, it helps the offense a lot.
So, going about all of these amazing players in the league and these teams that are showing up and showing out, let's hear some of your predictions. So, we've got the standings right now, but obviously standings change, people get injured. But who would you say are your top 6 on each side?
So, we're like 41 games in right now. The Celtics are currently first at 27-12. The Bucks are 25-13, as well as the Nets, so that's 2-3. The Cavs are 25-14. The Sixers are 23-14, and the Knicks are 21-18, as well as the Pacers 21-18. So if I'm being honest, there's gonna be teams that go on hot streaks. There's gonna be teams that fall off, and it won't be as per 1/6. But I think the top 6 teams are definitely gonna be the Celtics, Bucks, and Nets.
They're stamped in.
I think that's locked and loaded. With 3 extra spots, I can definitely see the Sixers taking one of them. I really, really believe in this young Cavs team. They're so much fun to watch. They could,
so fun.
They could honestly, take a top 3 spot in this East. They're doing a lot of good things out there in Cleveland. So I'm gonna say they're another top 6 team in the East. And for that last team, honestly, there's the Knicks and Pacers who are up there right now. They're playing good basketball. But then you have other teams that aren't playing as great. The Heat, the Hawks, the Raptors. Those are all teams that, they get their things together and they play good games. They play good basketball and they're able to succeed on the court. So if I had to pick one, I'm honestly gonna go with the Heat. Eric Spoelstra, he knows what to do. He knows how to get it done. He knows how to get his guys motivated. He knows how to win games with Jimmy and Bam and Kyle. Get Victor healthy. You have Tyler Hero down there. I think they can make a lot of noise.
Yeah, so for my Eastern side, you got, it's of course no order, but the first 3, I kind of want to put it in order because those 3 are some of the best teams in the league right now, and everyone's doing what they need to do. I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna say number 1. I think it's the Nets. I think Nets are the scariest team when it comes to the playoffs. You've got Kyrie, who came back and is absolutely dogging every single person that comes in his way. He's making flashy layup packages again. He's doing these crazy passes. KD is on a tear like he always is, but he's finally starting to gel more. That team is now gelling more than it ever has. Since they put that team together, they've had their issues, their quirks. Kyrie going in and out of the lineup, can't play home games, gotta go away. And then all of a sudden, you just feel that aura. Just like last year, they were the favorite to win the finals going into the playoffs, but then they got swept. They got swept because they hadn't played together. You can't just stick a superstar into the lineup and say, hey, now you guys are 100%. Now you guys can play together even though you barely played any games. That's just not how it works. Team chemistry is everything no matter what the player you have. So I'm going them number 1. Number 2, have to go with the Celtics. The Celtics have the number 1 defense in the league. They all work together. We've got the youngest coach right now. We've had coach problems and still doing their thing. And I think that's what changes the whole dynamic of that team, is the fact that they can go through all these issues and they can still play together. And everyone would be, like last year especially, talking about Jaylen Brown. Should he leave? Should they get rid of him? Now look at them. I would say that he should be in the backcourt for the All-Star game. Number 3, I'm gonna have to go with the Bucks. Even though they're injured, everyone's having lingering injuries, Chris Middleton's out. No matter what, that team's built for playoffs. They've shown it year in, year out. Doesn't matter the amount of minutes they have to play. No matter what, they go out there and they can play a series against the best. So I think you have to lock them in at 3. 4, this is where it starts to get tricky because I say the Sixers should get that 4 spot. The only issue I have is endurance and longevity. Can they continue it? Can they keep it going? Can everyone stay healthy?
Can they stay hungry?
That's huge. And will their bench prevail? is also something I think we need to look at, which is I'm giving them that four seed, but I don't know. I have a lot of questions, and I hope that they get answered. Number 5, it's those guys at the Cavs for sure. I mean, both of us said it before the season started, and everyone kind of wrote us off in our group chats about how good that team would be with D. Mitch, because that dude, he knows how to play some basketball, as shown with that 71.
He's a hooper.
He's a hooper, and he doesn't slow down. Darius Garland, hooper.
This baby CP3, I've been saying.
He's a hooper. This man goes out there and he gives you 8 to 10 assists like it's nothing. Automatic. So I think that the Cavs have that in a bag. 6th spot is where I become a little iffy. So you kind of got me there with the Heat, because the Heat, they're the truth. They know how to play. Jimmy Buckets knows how to get out there and win some games, and their standings they can go up in the standings very, very quickly. But I'm gonna have to give it to the young Bucks over at Indiana. We've got the Pacers, got Tyrese. Everyone there is playing amazing. They're playing together
For each other.
Yeah, you've got 6, 7 players who put in double digits.
Nice.
They play against top performers, and they always go out there and they give them a run for their money. So I'm gonna surprise everyone and say that the Pacers are that number 6.
Yeah, they compete. They're a team that goes out there. Rick Carlisle, he knows how to motivate his guys. Tyrese can go out there and run an offense so beautifully and fluently. It's so much fun watching Tyrese Halliburton play basketball, especially when he's out there with a shooter like Buddy Hield, and you got a hooper like Chris Duarte.
He knows how to pass the rock now.
You got Isaiah Jackson out there doing his thing. You got Miles Turner when he's healthy playing his great ball. It's fun to watch the Pacers. It's a little on the edge for me to put them up at 6. I honestly would see them in the play-in with like maybe the Hawks and the Bulls. I can see all of them like vying out for that last spot. But you know, if they can stay on their game and keep playing well, keep playing for each other, keep showing that Rook Benedict Mathurin the ropes and keep giving him the keys, he's having an excellent season. If he can get his efficiency a little bit better, kind of to like how it was in the beginning of the season when he was just torching everybody, that team is gonna stay dangerous. They're gonna stay hot. They're gonna stay competitive. They're gonna stay hungry. They're like the Grizzlies out in the East. They're super young, super competitive, play for each other. And there's not one person on that team that stands out above everybody else because they play so well for each other.
So moving on to the West, let's hear your 6 for that.
So definitely, in the West, how the standings are currently, the Nuggets and Grizzlies are tied at first, 25 and 13. The Pels are in third, 24 and 14. The Mavericks are in fourth, 22 and 17. The Sacramento Kings are in fifth, 20 and 17.
That's crazy.
The Clippers are 21 and 19 after getting embarrassed and blown out last night by the Denver Nuggets. The Trailblazers are 19 and 18 at the 7th seed, and the Suns and the Warriors are tied at the 8th spot for 20 and 19. So it goes without saying, when Steph Curry comes back in about 2 weeks, the Warriors are going to shoot right back up to where they were. Steph Curry has been playing like an alternate version of his 2016 self since pretty much the middle of last season. It's actually been kind of scary watching him play, how he's been automatic in everything that he does. I've been saying for a long time, his game is so polished in a way that he can continue playing at that level probably until his 40s.
Yeah.
He doesn't rely on anything physical. It's all natural to him.
He's lean. He doesn't get the...
It's so natural. It's so. Oh my goodness! It makes me speechless sometimes. I'm just thinking about how beautiful his game is sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're definitely a top 6 team. The Nuggets, to me, are the best team in the West.
Yep.
They're getting back into the groove of having Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. Aaron Gordon has been playing amazing for them. You have Bones Highland, who is honestly a sleeper for most improved, but that's honestly going to Larry Markkinen, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
Guys like Zeke Naji, guys like Bruce Brown, they're putting in the work for the Nuggets. They're getting down and dirty, and they're showing the league why they're 25-13, and they can still have Jokic, the best player in the league, sit on the bench for half of the game. So I also think the Grizzlies, of course, they're gonna keep getting better and better. I think they need to continue to stay humble a bit. You know, that Christmas loss against the Warriors was kind of funny, but they're still gonna keep getting better, and they just need to keep believing in themselves and playing good basketball. I also think the Pelicans and Mavericks. The Pelicans, right now, Brandon Ingram hasn't played since the middle of November, but with Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, CJ McCollum, who's a leader with the basketball, he does so many things with and without the basketball that elevates that team. Jonas Valanciunas, you got Herbert Jones, you got Jose Alvarado, you got your guys that get the gritty stuff done. So that's a team that's built for success. Dallas, Luka Doncic, generational talent. You know, the other day he had 60, 12, and however many. He's lighting up the league. This is his league. If he can continue to have guys like Christian Wood be his number 2 and play at that number 2 level, they'll be fine, but they need to seriously get him some help. The way that they handled the Jalen Brunson situation in the offseason wasn't the best, and I definitely say it hurt more than helped them. But it's still Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
He's gonna get that playoff spot. You don't want to play him. He's a magician in his own right, and he will also lead the Mavs to a top seed in the West. And the last team for me, honestly, not the Suns. I think the Clippers. Right now, the Clippers in offensive efficiency and consistency rank at the bottom of the league. They're like 28th and 30th. They're terrible on offense. I was watching the game last night, and I had to turn the volume down because it was literally brick after brick after brick. Like, it was hurting my ears. Yeah, they couldn't hit shots. It was hard. It was actually hard to watch because I'm a big Kawhi guy. So, like, when I see that, you know, he's not playing a couple games because he's got to tend to his knee or his hamstring or his finger. When I see him play, you know, I'm expecting him to go at the other team's best player. I'm expecting him to, you know, match up with Jokic here and there, and, you know, go give him buckets and to lock down Aaron Gordon or Jamal Murray, whoever has the ball. But when you see that he's not playing well, and the Clippers are down 17 at the end of the first quarter, Paul George isn't shooting the ball well at all. They're doing terrible. You know, that poses some concern. But it's only the middle of the season. They're a talented team. They're a great team. They have the tools defensively. They obviously have the tools offensively. They just need to put it all together. So I definitely would say the Clippers are going to end up as one of those top teams in the West.
So I would have to start off with, I 100% agree with you with the Nuggets. I think that team has the ability to make a deep playoff push, and I do think that they have the most rounded team in the West. I would say that they do things differently than a lot of other teams where they do not have to rely on their number 1 player as much as, like you would say. As much as he puts up those numbers where it feels like they are relying on him, they don't need him to do all that all the time. They have other playmakers. They have people who are experienced, who know how to go out there and win a basketball game. So I would have to say, number 1, Nuggets. Number 2, I would have to go with the Grizzlies right now because, I mean, other than that embarrassing loss, like you said, I would have to say that Ja Morant is him. Ja Morant knows how to go out there. Their entire team, they have shooters surrounding him. They've got bigs. They know exactly how to play to their strengths and their weaknesses. And they know how to go out there and stop people too. They can go out there and they work together. I think that's something that's not seen as much. I mean, Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks, and Ja barely have played with each other really this year. Like, they've just started to a little bit more, but in the beginning of the season, they didn't have much playing time, maybe even 0 in the beginning. So the fact that they can get that ramped up, get them out there, get them like on a hot streak, I love them at number 2. And then number 3, the Pelicans. I mean, if they can keep Zion healthy at at the points where he needs to be, which right now he has that hamstring, I think that they can do a lot, especially with the fact that they have a ball handler now who like has been there for a little bit, has time like dealing with it all. I think that they needed that. They needed somebody else but Brandon Ingram, who when he like everything settles with him, he'll be good. But they needed somebody else who can go out there and control the ball and like control the pace, maybe like get Brandon open like through like an off-ball screen and all that. So I love them sitting right there. My 4 spot is those Clips. I do not care what anybody says. Just like you said, they have those players, they have those guys. I think that they're gonna do more than what people expect them to do, and I think that's why they're gonna succeed. Is because they don't have that pressure as much. They don't like. Right now, they're trying to work through some kinks. They've got their number 1 and number 2 really going through some issues and pushing past them, and hopefully they can get it together, and I really do think they will. And then I'm gonna have to go Warriors at 5. I mean, no one can count out the Warriors. They have the experience, they have the drive. Steph is still doing his thing, just like you said, back to 2016. He's shown it. He's shown why he is Steph Curry and why people model their games after Steph Curry at the age of being a middle schooler. That's why people are chucking up half-court shots, is because of this guy. So I'm gonna have to give him the 5, and at 6, I don't even want to give him this spot, but it's the Mavs. The only reason why I don't want to is because they need more players around Luka, but the thing is, who are they gonna dish out? They don't have a lengthy team. They don't have this long roster of players, and they're not gonna be able to send these people out to get a better product back. And I think that's the issue with the Mavs right now, is because they're not going to be able to gain somebody who's actually a playmaker or a game changer, because they don't have anybody to give out that's a playmaker or game changer.
No, it's so odd to me, because you would think that Dallas is, kind of a nice place to go play basketball. Mm-hmm. And Luka's a young generational talent. So why can't is it like the front office not working hard enough to get those packages, or is there a sentiment around the league that players don't want to go play in Dallas? I don't know what it is. But if you really sit down and think about it, Luke is doing a well enough job with this team to keep them out of the lottery each and every year. Mm-hmm. So the Mavs aren't going to have the luxury of going into each draft with potentially a top 10 pick saying, oh, we can just draft the best talent available and hopefully he's a good fit next to Luka. And then they go out and they make their moves to sign a guy like Christian Wood, who during the first fourth of the season kind of looked like they regretted making that move. And he's been playing better as of late. But it's just is that the best that you can do when you have a generational talent on your roster? A guy that in his first 2 playoff appearances playing the same team in the Clippers takes them to 6 and 7 by himself. This kid is special. This kid is the future of basketball, even more so than a Tatum, even more so than a Ja, than a Devin Booker, or even the guys down low like Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson. This kid is special. He's the face of basketball. And for Dallas to not really have a sense of urgency or have a true commitment to getting that star-studded second guy next to him, I feel like that should speak numbers to him. It should tell him, where that organization's value really lie, if that's the case. Because I may not know what they're doing behind the scenes, but if I'm over there working in the front office for Mark Cuban and company, I'm doing whatever I can. I'm sitting on simulators all day, putting together draft picks. I don't care if I'm send away the next 4 draft picks. You're gonna have Luka there for the next 10, 12 years. He's gonna keep you out of the lottery, so those picks are gonna be late 20s anyways. Build something, because if not, then you guys are just gonna waste away his career being in the middle of the West, when clearly this guy has the talent almost by himself to be at the top of the West.
All right, so we're going to wrap up this episode of Having Juice with OJ. But first, of course, we're going to have to talk about the juice and what we like for Sunday's slate. So I'm going to have to say last week was not my best performance with my betting, but we're going to have to run it back and double back. We've got Jay Jettas going for yards and a tutty this week. I do not think that he will have another week like last week ever again, 15 yards. And it made me eat my words a little bit, but we'll say that one. And then A.J. Dillon, man. That dude is on a tear. He's that run it, pound it in, running back. He's going to get it right at the goal line. He's going to throw one in. And then I'm going to have to go Ramondre Stevenson. As much as we talked up that Bills defense, I do think that he will get that.
I love all of those picks. Coming off a bounce back week with against the Bears, not a great secondary. Justin Jefferson is looking to have that game where he goes wild. A.J. Dillon has been scoring every single week since week 10. He has like 7 touchdowns in 6 games. So the Packers are probably just going to look to continue feeding off that, building off that, getting that confidence going into the playoffs. Ramondre Stevenson and the Patriots. You know, I was telling you, this is a must-win game for the Patriots. I don't see them losing this game and losing this wild card spot. You know, I think they get it done. And if they do, they're going to have to do it on the back of their best player, Ramondre Stevenson.
Yep.
And as for me, my picks, well, earlier we mentioned, you know, if the Ravens lose to the Bengals, they don't get that top wildcard spot. And that would be left to the Chargers. So I don't think the Chargers would have much to play for.
And then the 4 p.m. game, right, compared to the 1.
They play at 4 p.m. after the Ravens against the Broncos. So if you want to get a little risky, Broncos money line, I think it was at plus 150 when I last checked. Have fun with that. The wild card, the NFC, I think that scenario, you make a little parlay with that. You know, there's 2 games. You could take any scenario that you like of the winners between the Seahawks, the Rams, the Lions and Packers. I did a little parlay of Seahawks Packers. It comes out to minus 108, but if you do a little juice with spreads and stuff like that, you probably get better odds. And I actually doubled down with the A.J. Dillon touchdown, but I also like a Jamal Williams touchdown.
I like that too.
Because of
parlay him.
Maybe a bit of parlaying, maybe a bit of player incentive, maybe a bit of Jamal Williams. I think is still the leading rushing touchdown scorer in the league.
Yep.
So against a Packers offense that can sometimes be iffy, get him up against the goal line, punch it in. That's a great thing that Jamal has been doing all year. So I definitely like those 2 to score this week.
I definitely agree. Well, thank you guys for watching Having Juice with OJ with Yerimi. This was a great episode. Had a lot of things to talk about. Hope you guys enjoyed. So like and subscribe and leave a comment below. Thank you.
Gamble with your life. If you didn't know. You don't want no smoke, little type of shit that make you choke. This dope, but there's no coke, there's no weight, but these pounds will take weight off. Get you light as a featherweight, get higher than elevation. Patience, young brother. I gas up and aim, just flame this bum burner. Son of a gun, son of a father, he never really knew. Son of God and my mama the proof. Get in the booth and make a mess, huh? Get in the pew and start confessing like Usher. I let it burn for my haters. A lot of struggles, but I'm blessed, huh? Everybody got a kryptonite.